What's up guys, Silver here with another Halo Master Chief Collection Achievement Guide. This time we're doing part 7 of our Halo 2 LASO run. This is Regret, and this mission picks up right where Delta Halo left off, so whatever weapons you had at the end of that mission, that's what you're going to start off with here. So if you followed my guide for Delta Halo, you should have a full BR and beam rifle, but if not, don't worry. I'm actually going to spawn in here with a beam rifle and an SMG. And right off the bat, you're going to spawn in. You want to go up the ramp here and jump to the right on top of this ledge and go out the door. And we're going to back up through this hallway. And 2 to 4 elites spawn in, so you want to backsmack them as they spawn in. The slower you take them out, the less actually spawn here. So if you're super slow, only 2 will spawn. If you kill the first 2 super fast, 2 more will spawn in to take their place. But we're going to hide right here in this exact spot. As soon as we take out those elites, you'll see another elite charges this location if you hide in that corner. And you can just jump out at him once you see him and smack him until he turns around and give him the back smack. And then you want to look around on the ground for any elites that may have dropped a carbine. You can see I grabbed a carbine, so I now have a beam rifle and a carbine. So you can see I took out that first jackal sniper. That's the first spot you want to check. Usually there is one there, so we took him out. You want to be careful because there's grunts that come around the corner to the left. And the second spot we're going to check for a jackal is to the right of this pillar. So I'm just going to crouch and then slowly move to the right. You can see he's right there. Shoot him in the head real quick. You can see the grunts that I talked about on the left side are showing themselves, so I like to take them out with a carbine or a battle rifle. If I don't have either of those, I'll just use my beam rifle. And the third spot I like to check for a jackal is to the right over here. You could usually see his mohawk sticking up over the geometry, so kind of move up until you could get a headshot on him. So we've taken out 3 jackal snipers, so there's 2 left, and there's 3 potential locations where they're going to be in now that remain. So one is behind that half wall I'm looking at, kind of more towards the right. Another possible location is that balcony right there. We see he's not there right now at least. And then the final location is behind this half wall, and you have to move to the left or the right to kind of get a visual on him. But you could see, we could see him on the left side a little bit, so we're going to just lean into that, go more towards the left. We could see him there. We'll take him out. So the last remaining jackal must be behind that half wall, more towards the right like I mentioned, or he might be popping out onto that balcony really soon. We could actually get him to come out onto the balcony by throwing a grenade over there. So I'm going to throw a plasma grenade because we want to save our frag grenades for the end. But once your grenade goes off over there, just kind of look at this balcony for a while. Sometimes he pops out right away. Sometimes it takes a while. So it took a few seconds this time. So now that he is showing himself, we'll kind of inch our way out and shoot him in the head. It's always random where these jackals spawn. There's 6 locations and 5 jackals, so you want to check all 6 locations. But now that the 2 grunts and the 5 jackals are taken care of, I'm going to focus on beating down one of my friendlies here, just to ensure that I have at least a full shield, because I'm going to do a grenade jump right now with a frag grenade. But before we do that, I'm going to go over here into this corner, and there's going to be a full beam rifle. You could grab this earlier in the mission if you happen to not have a beam rifle to start, but if you start with one, you could use the one you start with and then switch to this one before you do this grenade jump. But once you're ready to cross, throw a frag at the railing here and then jump as it explodes. You'll be able to get all the way across. It's not a tough grenade jump or anything. There's no specific spot you need to hit. I don't aim for anything really. I have no real reference when I'm throwing that grenade. It's pretty forgiving, relatively easy. But this jump could be a little tough at first. You actually just want to run straight and then just jump straight out to this gondola. It's a little tough at first. You have to basically wait until the last second before you jump. So you might want to practice that a little bit on a lower difficulty. Over where I was just zooming in, there's sometimes a jackal sniper, very rarely though. But you want to stand on the middle of this platform, and you can see an octagon and the texture on the floor in front of us. And then even closer to us is another pattern. It kind of looks like a bridge between 2 platforms. You want to get behind this so that you're kind of standing right behind this bridge pattern, and then there's an octagon, and then another bridge pattern, and then there's that platform. And you can see a little tower in the middle of that platform. We're going to look straight at it and then look straight up and throw a plasma grenade, and then immediately run to the right, and we're going to turn back to the left and throw a plasma grenade so it hits the left side, the far side of that little half wall. And then as we hit this load zone, we're going to throw a plasma grenade to the near side of this half wall, and 4 jackals, 2 elites will spawn in. We'll immediately run back towards the gondola, but let's see it again in slow motion. We line ourselves up where we need to. We're going to look straight up, and these are all going to be plasma grenades. So we're going to look straight up as far as you can, throw a plasma grenade, and then we're going to turn to the right immediately, and we're going to run over here towards this brown platform, and we're going to throw a plasma grenade to the far side of that half wall, throw another plasma grenade as we break that barrier and spawn in those enemies, and we'll be able to turn back immediately and run and jump to this gondola here as it takes off. Usually you take little to no shots because those enemies are scrambling. Occasionally you'll die, but you could always hit start, save, and quit, and then resume, so you could start up at your last checkpoint. But one very important step you need to do now is to keep meleeing. You can see my screen is kind of jostling to the left and right. That's because I'm meleeing constantly. You want to melee constantly or jump constantly, and and what that does is it delays your checkpoint. You can't get a checkpoint while you're smacking the air, and by delaying this checkpoint, you will be performing the God despawn, which gets that phantom to totally disappear. Normally it drops off 2 hunters. You could see it just disappeared as it was going to drop off those guys, but you're just going to hide right here. There's going to be another gondola that you cross paths with, and it has enemies on it, but you just hide here and you're totally safe. And you can see I just skipped ahead about a minute there. You're just sitting on the gondola, taking a nice relaxing ride across with no enemies you have to fight. We skip all the gondola enemies, we skip all the buggers that fly at you, and as you can see, there's no enemies at the beginning of this temple either. There's normally a bunch of beam rifle jackals, regular jackals, and grunts who get on the turrets up top. But with this exploit, we don't have to worry about any of that. But you can see there were a couple plasma nades by that beam rifle outside. There's also a couple right here by this plasma rifle. Grab those because we want to have full grenades, and we're going to go out here and we're going to melee one of these turrets at least. You could melee both of them if you would like. I'm going to save one of them. You can see I skipped ahead a little bit there. It takes a little while to take out these turrets with a melee, but by doing that we got our shields up, and then we're going to peek our heads in the doorway here. We're going to throw a plasma grenade roughly about here, and then we're actually going to run in here and throw a plasma grenade right about there, more towards the right, as we jump up onto this structure and then up towards this ramp and then up towards the middle area here, and then we'll keep winding around up the catwalks to a sleeping grunt. We'll see if he's asleep or he has been woken up by all the commotion. Looks like he got woken up. Either way, we're going to smack him to death to get our shield back. A lot of the time you take minimal damage from those jackals because they are dodging out of the way of those plasma grenades, but unfortunately one of them had an overcharged plasma pistol which totally depleted my entire shield. But we still made it up here, and we have at least one regular shield. So from up here, we're just going to pick off these jackals slowly with our carbine or our beam rifle, and we could also throw some plasma grenades down there as well if we need to. And the reason why we jumped up here so aggressively is because by getting up here, we actually despawn all the buggers. There would be a wave of buggers if we hung out down below and killed off the jackals. Once you kill enough jackals, the buggers spawn in. But since we're up here where they spawn, they actually don't spawn in at all. So we're avoiding having to deal with those guys entirely. So once you take out all the jackals, there will be some dialogue from Cortana. You want to grab the fuel rod if you can from up here. There should be 4 shots in it, but you want to reload it real quick. And you want to grab some plasma grenades as well. There's 2 over here all the time. And then we're going to look down the shaft of the elevator here, and as soon as you see those jackals pop in, you can see their shields pop in and they spawn down there. You want to shoot all of your fuel rod down. It actually goes through the ceiling of the elevator there, and I like to follow up with a plasma grenade. That was a bad nade, but normally you want to throw that plasma grenade straight down the shaft instead of more up like I did this time, but it worked out. There's 3 jackals in that elevator, so if you get 3 kills, you know you're done with this area. I'm just gathering supplies now, preparing for the next section. I'm exchanging my now empty fuel rod for my carbine again, so I have a carbine and a beam rifle. I think my beam rifle is still full, but if you used any beam rifle in this section or any previous sections, you could fill it back up because there is a fresh one up by those turrets that we were smacking as we came into here. So we could go up here, get the beam rifle, so we have a full beam rifle, whatever we have left in our carbine, and we could smack these turrets, whatever turrets remain that you may or may not have smacked earlier. Also, there's 2 Marines that are getting dropped off typically, but in this playthrough, you're going to see there's only 1 Marine, and I get really confused. I start looking around for the other Marine so I could smack them to get my shields up, and they normally join you in the elevator here, but there's only 1, so I basically just get really confused and start looking around for that other Marine for like 30 seconds or so, 45 seconds, so I skipped ahead, so I cut that part out where I'm just wandering around aimlessly. I've settled for the fact that I only have 1 Marine companion. Activate the elevator, and then as you wait for the elevator to go down and then come up at the next section, you could melee your Marine buddy here for shield and also get any nades that you may have used. I suggest not using any frag grenades though, like I mentioned earlier. It's very important to save at least 1 for the big trick at the end of the mission. So we just skipped ahead here, obviously cutting out the elevator ride because it's a lot of dialogue and you just stand there. We come up here, there is a carbine under the stairs here, so grab that. And we now have more ammo for that gun. There's also a couple plasma nades, so grab those if you need any. And we're going to look around the corner here, and there's going to be a bunch of grunts running around. A lot of easy targets out here. Just headshot all these guys with your carbine. No reason you should really go in and fight these guys close up. You could just take them out easily from far away. Try to conserve your shield as much as possible. Obviously, that's something you should take into every encounter because you really want to save that shield when Black Eye Skull's on. So move forward now that everyone is dead or most people are dead. Sometimes there's going to be a grunt or 2 at the end of the hall here that are kind of hiding behind the structures. So I could see 1 grunt is hiding behind the structure here, which is a common hiding spot. Make sure you check those corners. I'm going to throw a couple plasma grenades at him because there are tons of plasma grenades on the ground due to the Black Eye, or not the Black Eye Skull, but the Catch Skull. So if you have to use any grenades, I would recommend the plasmas because there's a ton that are being dropped throughout the mission. I almost forgot about this carbine. There is a bunch of carbine ammo under this ramp, the ramp that you come into this room from, and then we're going to grab that and head up the other side to the next room here. This next room is totally skippable. Thank God, because there's a ton of people in there. But you can see there's more carbine ammo to the left of the door. I'll show you. I'll kind of run at it, even though I think I have full carbine right now. It's right here by the plasma grenade, so grab that if you need it. We're going to go up to the right here, and normally we jump up where that elite is, but obviously there's an elite there with a sword, so we didn't do it that time. We cut into the left and kind of jumped up on the other side of that column, which is a fairly safe alternate route. Follow this path, head into this door. You could jump right over the hunters as they come out of the door there. You may want to wait a split second for the hunters to be a little further outside of the door. We're going to jump down to the left into the water, and we're going to snipe these enemies in this area with our beam rifle and with our carbine. So there's 3 grunts in this area, so take those guys out with your carbine, and there's also 2 invisible elites. Well, everybody's invisible. I don't know why I said that. Probably because in this section, these guys are actually invisible in the regular campaign. So even without the assassin skull, these guys are all invisible in here. But you can see when elites are shooting at you like this, they can't really see you, but they're still shooting towards your general direction. That usually means when you're playing LASO that they're kind of locked in. Due to the anger skull, it makes them more aggressive in shooting their guns. And when that happens with the plasma rifles, they actually overheat, so they have to wait a few seconds for their guns to cool down. So you can see I waited for that to happen before I popped out myself and shot them twice with the beam rifle to take them out. So we're just going to clean up the enemies here that remain. Sometimes they're more stubborn than others. They like to hide behind things, and you could always try to get them to pop out by changing your position. Or if they're really not changing their position, even though you're kind of moving around all over the place over here, you could throw some plasma grenades to try to get them to move as well, because as I mentioned, there's a ton. So if you throw a couple, there's a bunch on the ground that will replace them for you. So as soon as you take out the 3 grunts and the 2 elites in this area, that will spawn in 1 additional elite at the far end who's going to have a sword. So watch out for him once you clear out these 5 guys. There will be a sword elite running down the ramp towards you. And we're going to look at him immediately and take him out with 2 beam rifle shots. But we got to take out this last guy real quick. He's being super stubborn, and I don't actually recommend getting this close. I'm just kind of getting tired of this guy, and I feel comfortable on LASO to, be a little more risky, but just stay back and get him to come out and just shoot him with a headshot from far away. You can see the elite came in as promised, and now we are going to turn around the way we came back towards those hunters in that giant room full of enemies, and we're going to grab dual plasma pistols for the next section. So we grab that plasma pistol, which has a full charge. We're going to go over here and grab this one. This one is full as well, so we have 2 full plasma pistols for the next section. I'm just going to speed this part up. We're going to run over to the elevator and drop one of these in the elevator, but then we're going to come back and grab the sword from that sword elite as well, so we could juggle that into the elevator. And then we want to either grab the beam rifle or the carbine. You could just juggle everything into the elevator, but I noticed the guns that are lying on the elevator floor despawn a lot of the time when you hit the load zone. So I'm just going to choose my beam rifle, which I recommend unless you have super low ammo or it's totally empty. And as you can see, I was looking down the shaft of this elevator. There's a lot of gaps that you could accidentally throw your weapons into as you're juggling them, and then you lose them. So make sure you're juggling safely by giving the elevator a wide berth when you're juggling. So as I activate this lift, I have 2 plasma pistols dual wielding right now. I have a beam rifle as my secondary, but you could have a carbine instead of that if you would like, if you have a lot of carbine ammo and almost no beam rifle or none at all. And then I have the sword lying on the ground here in the elevator itself. So we're moving on. I'm going to skip ahead. We're going to come up the elevator shaft here, and the first thing we face is a sword elite. So I'm going to dual plasma pistol this guy with overcharged bursts. That will take down his shield, and then I'll switch to my beam rifle or carbine and headshot him, or you could stick him as well to kill him. And you can see I chose the sticky option this time around, but I would recommend actually finishing him off with a carbine headshot if you have that, or a beam rifle, because then you don't risk taking any damage from your own plasma grenade as the elite runs at you, which I think I took some damage from that nade. But now this plasma rifle wielding elite is charging my location. He usually doesn't do this. Usually he stays a little further back, so I'm kind of freaking out right now. You can't really get behind this elevator either, so you're kind of stuck in this corner if he decides to push forward, which he did there, but he retreated fortunately, so I'm going to close the gap myself now. I have no shield, but we'll be able to sneak up on him and smack him to turn him around due to the Sputnik skull, and then we'll finish him off with the back smack to get at least 1 shield back, and then we can focus on the 4 grunts in this area, who are currently nading me, but that's okay. You want to stay up on this area, and you can actually look, and sometimes you could see their heads, and you could shoot them with the beam rifle or the carbine, whatever you have, and if you can't see any of their heads, you could always jump up onto the elevator. You can see I'm on the slanted lower part of the elevator, kind of the front face of the elevator. You want to be there because then you don't really show yourself too much, but you can kind of poke your head up over the wall right there and shoot them with a headshot. So that's a good spot to be. You don't want to be all the way on top of the elevator because then you're too exposed. You'll start getting shot at a lot and probably die. So now we're going to move around. Sometimes once you kill a couple of the grunts, the remaining grunts will retreat, so you might have to kind of follow them. You don't want to follow them all the way to the next section because then you alert the enemies that are there and you can't really get the jump on them. But you can see there's a crate of carbines here, so you have a lot of carbine ammo. So if you have a beam rifle still, you want to use the carbine and beam rifle at this point. If you only have a carbine, that's okay. Just go in with a carbine, and I guess whatever else you want to use, plasma pistol would be fine, or a sword, whatever. Doesn't really matter. Those two grunts, fortunately, didn't go all the way around the corner to the right. You want to pick those guys off as soon as you can because the next section is a lot easier if you take out those grunts before they get there. But you can see these things. These things explode. They give you a small amount of shield, but it's kind of risky because they do explode. So you'll get a full shield from killing them, but then it takes most of it away, so you only get like a little sliver of shield from those things, but you may want to do that if you have 0 shield. But we're going to walk over here and jump across the threshold of the door to the other side. That enables you to get over here without being spotted more often. And then we're going to look over here, and normally there's 1 or 2 buggers that are just walking along the ground around that rock, so you could take out 2 of them quickly if you're fast enough with that beam rifle. That's why I brought the beam rifle, because it's 2 shots with the beam rifle to take out a bugger, so it's good at clearing out this little section here. If you only have a carbine, you could just lay into him with the carbine, and obviously it'll take a few more shots, but the carbine is still an effective weapon against buggers, so not a bad downgrade. But once we take out all of the buggers, of which there are 4, we want to focus on the other enemies, which are 2 elites and a handful of jackals up at the top of the area over there. But we're going to focus mostly on the elites because the elites are going to be the ones mostly focused on us. The jackals kind of mind their own business for the most part. Sometimes they poke their heads out a little bit, but the elites are going to be the people who are trying to pin us in this area. So it's a little tough to get out of sometimes, but we're going to grab the sword and we're going to go over to this crate, which had the carbines in it, and we're going to just sword this over towards that doorway where we were fighting those buggers. So just kind of slice this thing all the way over there, and then we want to set it up so it's either on its side or it's upright. We don't want it on its back because then it's too short for our purposes. We want to kind of flip it up like so, right in the doorway, so that's perfect. We're going to go back and exchange our sword for, I don't know what we're going to exchange it for. What weapons do I have? We basically want to have dual plasma pistols, so we're going to grab those full plasma pistols that we brought to this section. You could also grab some of the plasma pistols from the grunts, but they have less ammo, and you're never sure how many plasma pistols these grunts are going to have because sometimes they all spawn with needlers, so that would not be good. So we have the full plasma pistols, and we're going to position ourselves so when we're crouched, we're totally safe and behind this thing, and when we uncrouch, our reticle is right on the elite. So we'll duck, charge up our plasma pistols, uncrouch, and release those. Crouch back down and switch to your carbine. While that's happening, those plasma pistol bursts will be connecting with the elite. Uncrouch real quick, and then shoot them with a headshot to finish them off. Very safe, very effective way to take out these elites as they're fixated on shooting you. It's much, much safer to have something in front of you and kind of poke your head over the top of it than it is to kind of be on the side of a door frame and then kind of scooch out to the side barely, because then your whole body's exposed, and then they could shoot you much more easily than if it was just the top of your head that's poking out. But I was looking to do the same thing to the remaining elite, but a lot of times, once you kill one of the elites, the second one kind of runs away and hides a little bit. So we need to kill one more enemy. It doesn't matter if it's one of these jackals or if it's the last elite. We need to kill one more, and that will get the pelican to come in and distract all these guys, and then we could backsmack all of the remaining enemies to get our shields up to a double over shield for the next section. So I'm kind of just hanging back. I see the jackals are kind of shooting at me. I have their attention right now, so I'm kind of just poking my head out. I'm thinking maybe I could kind of bounce a nade off a rock onto the jackal. Wasn't good enough there. So I'm always wary about the other elite because who knows when he's going to poke his head out at this point. He could pop out to the right side and kind of flank me from over here, so we wouldn't want that. But I'm just kind of looking around right now. Another note about jackals is the fact that once they have their shield up and covering their face, they won't move that shield, so you might as well just kind of duck back behind cover and then just wait a little while before they take their shield down because they're not engaging you anymore, and then you could try for the headshot because they don't put their shield down once it's up, so you might as well reposition, kind of disengage for a little bit, wait for them to reset, and then you could see they've taken their shield down just like I described, and we could shoot one in the head. So as a reminder, we need to kill 6 enemies here. We killed 4 buggers, 1 elite, and 1 jackal, so that's 6. So once you do that, you just want to hang back. You'll hear some dialogue, and the pelican will come in. You want to hang back here. You don't want to move forward yet because the pelican will come in. We want to move forward once we see 3 streams of fire coming in and colliding with that pelican. So we'll see the 2 jackals and the 1 remaining elite firing at the pelican, so we could see 2 plasma pistols and 1 carbine is firing at that thing now. So at that point, they are totally fixated on that pelican, so we could start running over here, backsmack all 3 of them. You should have a full double overshield at this point for the next section, which we'll want. And you can see the Pelican has also dropped down a bunch of weapons for us to use. There's battle rifles, there's snipers, and other stuff. But you can see here, I just cut in with a separate run. This is the new way we're going to finish this mission. After finishing this video and publishing the guide on YouTube here, I discovered a lot better ways to finish this mission off. But the whole first half of the mission up until this point remains the same. And at this point, we want to gather supplies, so we want to have full plasma grenades if we can. You should be able to find a bunch of plasma grenades lying around the map from all the enemies we killed. You could also kill your 2 Marine buddies if you don't have any frags. You want to have at least 1 frag for the final jump that we're going to do at the end of this mission. So we have 4 frags, we have 4 plasma grenades at this point, ideally, and we're going to grab a sniper out of these drop pods, so make sure you collect the ammo. There's 2 drop pods that have sniper, so make sure you grab one and then touch the other to grab the ammo. And I'm also going to grab a plasma pistol, ideally one of the plasma pistols we brought with us that had a full charge, so it probably doesn't have a full charge anymore, but it has probably more ammo in it than one of the other ones that a random enemy dropped. But if you can't find one of those 2 plasma pistols we brought with us, no worries, just grab a random one that one of the jackals dropped and continue on here. We're going to jump to this tree, jump up here, and then jump up here onto the mountain, and we're going to zoom in and find the jackal sniper down there, and we're going to snipe him before he could snipe us. So once you kill the jackal, you want to throw a plasma grenade towards the right side of that crate he was hiding behind, and it will blast it towards the gondola. We want to get that crate onto the gondola, or as close to it as possible with that 1 grenade. Then we're going to jump down, and we're going to juggle some weapons real quick to the gondola. We want to do this as fast as possible. Grab this BR, and we're going to juggle it towards the gondola. And as we're throwing that BR towards the gondola, we're going to grab these rockets as well from the left drop pod. So just juggle all 3 of these weapons towards the gondola as fast as you can, because if we take too much time, there's going to be some enemies that spawn on the gondola, and then we'll have to deal with them. If that does happen, we want to take them out with the rockets we just picked up. So we want to move the crate fully onto the gondola, so it's down here in the lower level, so that's what we want. And the enemies that would have spawned in here would spawn where I'm humping the ground right now. So be on the lookout for those guys in case they spawn in. There's a handful of jackals and grunts, so you can take them out easily enough with the rockets. So it's not too big of a deal if they spawn in. You just want to make sure they don't take you by surprise. But if you're fast enough, like in this run, they will not spawn in at all, so you don't have to worry about them. But once we activate this gondola, we're just going to go into this corner and crouch and walk directly into it. So you could see on my screen right now, you could kind of see through the wall if you tilt your head at an angle while you're crouching and walking into the wall. If you tilt your camera down at a certain angle, you could see through the wall a little bit. You could see the water down below. That's exactly what we want to do. That's the position we want to be in, so we could not be seen. When your head's stuck in a wall like it is right here, they can't see you for some reason, so we could just safely just walk and crouch into that corner as the gondola goes to the temple. It will pause temporarily because it waits for you to fight a bunch of people, but after a minute or 2, it actually just goes and continues on to the final destination without you even having to fight anybody. But you can see I put that crate in the corner as well. The reason for that is 95% of the time, I would say, you don't have to worry about any enemies coming up behind you, but occasionally one of the jetpack elites will land near you and then accidentally walk into you and discover that you're there just totally randomly, total accident, and then he'll wind up and smack you over the head and kill you. So I just put this box here so I prevent him from accidentally walking into me. So now we don't have to worry about that 5% of the time where he accidentally finds you and then smacks you over the head. But you can see I activated the gondola, and I actually just changed my settings temporarily to toggle crouch instead of hold to crouch. So that way I could just press the button once. It will make me crouch the whole time. I won't have to hold down the button, and I could just focus on walking into the corner for the next 2 or 3 minutes, however long it takes. And this trick works in co-op as well, so if you want to do it co-op, just have your buddy go on the right side of the gondola. I'm on the left side over here. Have your buddy go to the right side and just walk into the corner just like this. And you could have him bring a crate as well if you want, to make sure that no elites randomly come upon him. And you'll notice as you start the gondola, your camera starts shaking a little bit, so it's a little tougher to keep as much of your head in the wall as possible. So just kind of adjust your camera ever so slightly as you need to ensure that you have as much water in your view as possible on the top left and top right side of the screen. So just try to keep your view focused on as much water as possible. But I'm going to skip ahead here because we're really just going to do this for the next 2 or 3 minutes. So now we're getting close. You could tell you're close because the water on the upper left side of the screen is more white waterish instead of a calm pale blue. But you can see the crate actually shifts around in transit as well, so you want to make sure it's right up against that corner to start at least. But we're going to go around the back side of the gondola here, and we're going to start taking out these enemies. And you can see all the enemies at this point, or most of the enemies at least, run away. They're going up that ramp into the temple, including the 2 jetpack elites. You can see they actually followed us all the way to this point, and they are going to go into the temple. They're no longer hostile. They just fly straight to the temple and ignore you. but once you activate the cutscene, they will turn hostile again, so you want to make sure you take them out while they're not fighting back. So for the enemies that remain close to you, there's usually a grunt or two that stays by the turrets, so you can take those guys out easily enough with the BR, and then for any enemies that are further up the ramp towards the temple, you can take them out with the sniper. You should have a bunch of sniper ammo. There's a sniper that we brought with us, along with some more sniper ammo and a drop pod on the gondola itself, so we should have a bunch of ammo for that. And the jetpack elites take at least 3 shots with a sniper. If you could see their head, you could finish them off with that third sniper headshot. But that guy had his back to us, so he took a little more. I am still using toggle crouch, which I do not like, so I'm going back. There we go. Hold crouch all the way. Now we're just going to look at all the enemies, see if we could pick off any enemies in the distance. They don't really move around too much anymore. So we can see here's the second jetpack elite. Make sure to take out him for sure. And looks like we're doing pretty good. At this point, I don't think we could take out any more enemies. They're either hiding or dead, so I'm just going to fill up my ammo. You can see the sniper in the back of the gondola here, and also the BR on the top of the gondola. So we're going to move up, and we're going to break the barrier here to activate the cutscene. We're going to come out of the cutscene, we're going to back up and go to the back of the gondola straight away. There's going to be some enemies rushing out of the temple to set up shop on top of the ramp there. Most notably, a couple elites and also 2 grunts with plasma turrets that they set up. So we want to make sure we take out those plasma turrets first because they could shoot you from a long distance. So what I'm doing here is I'm just zooming in with my sniper to get my reticle on the head of the grunt, and then I just switched to my BR real quick so I could just pop him in the head with a BR burst instead of wasting a sniper bullet. So at this point, we have taken out those 2 turrets, and now we want to focus on just weeding out all of the remaining enemies. There should be some more grunts and jackals up there, so we're just going to kind of move around, get them to move around a little bit as well. Sometimes I'll shoot a BR burst at their general direction just to get them to move because sometimes they like to hide behind the door frame or something like that. But eventually, we want to take out at least one of the elites, and the way to do that is to go up here, and we're going to take them out with a plasma pistol overcharge burst plus 2 shots with a sniper. So get up on the back of the gondola where I am right now. If you're closer than this, they tend to see your overcharge burst coming at them and they just dodge out of the way. And I like to wait until that elite is kind of where he is right now, kind of crouched down facing the door frame right there, right on the edge of the doorway, and then just be ready with the sniper rifle so you could shoot him immediately upon that overcharge burst connecting with them. You could shoot really fast with the sniper in Halo 2, so just have your reticle right on his head, so when it connects, you just pull the trigger twice real quick. It'll finish him off before he could react, really. And then once you're comfortable that enough enemies are dead that they're not going to rush out, you could go up here and actually smack these turrets to get any shield back that you may have lost. There's also another turret on the right, obviously, that I ignored, and there's 2 more turrets that were set up, the plasma turrets that those 2 grunts were on initially. You could go up there as well and smack those for shield if you need it. We want to have a full double overshield at this point for the rocket grenade jump that we're going to do. It's a lot easier than the one I was doing earlier, if you saw that one. We're going to go up and do it on the left side of the temple in a second. So we just want to make sure, do one last sweep to make sure that there's no enemies that we could easily take out. It's just way easier to take them out from on the gondola because we have a ton of ammo out here. We have a really good vantage point. They can't really shoot at us or anything. So grind it out here for a little bit. Kill as many of them as you can. Unfortunately, when you kill one elite, the second one tends to retreat back into the temple. So you could probably only kill one, but that's okay. We'll deal with him later. I'll show you how. But you can see I took out one last jackal that I couldn't really get a good shot on his head, but I just took him out with a couple rockets. You want to make sure that you have 1 rocket left for the rocket nade jump and obviously a frag left for the rocket nade jump. So we're going to go over here on the left side, and you want to bring your rockets and a battle rifle. And if you look up at the side of the temple, you'll notice it's not a smooth wall. There's some kind of cutouts in the wall there, rather than in the front here. It's more smooth. You can see over there's kind of some gaps in the wall. So what are those, might I wonder? We're going to throw a frag down at the wall here and then shoot a rocket as it goes off to give us an extra boost. We're going to nade jump onto this windowsill type thing over here. And this will allow us to get into the temple early so we can prepare the battlefield to our liking. That's right, this is a giant window just hanging out on the side of the temple. I bet you never noticed there were giant windows in this temple. And on top of that, there's kind of a lack of ceiling in a lot of this temple now that we're looking up. But anyway, back to the matter at hand. We've rocket naded jump through the window so we could get in here early. And more importantly, we get in here without any of the enemies spawning, so we could barricade all the enemies in their spawn locations. So when we get in here and fight Regret, we're really only going to be fighting Regret on top of a few enemies that spawn in the beginning of the battle. But one thing you definitely do not want to do is leave this room. You can see I opened the doorway to the outside. You do not want to step through that doorway or you will spawn in Regret and all his minions. So the only enemies that are out in that antechamber are ones that we were unable to kill from the gondola. So you can see there was only one elite rather than a ton of enemies out there. So that's going to make our lives a lot easier later on when we want to spawn in Regret. But bring this crate to that ramp. We're going to barricade that ramp with that crate. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you can see I skipped ahead. We now have a crate on this ramp as well on the right side. And now we're going to move up to the top of the map and we're going to barricade a bunch of areas with these pedestals, these ceremonial looking pedestal type things. Here's the first one. We're going to knock this over and kind of move it over towards the left so it forms a little barricade for this walkway. This pathway here will be blocked. The grunts and elites will not be able to move past this area. So we'll kind of section all of these areas off so we could safely move throughout them if we need to, and we'll probably need to. So we're going to take this pedestal looking thing now, we're going to knock it over, and we're going to form a barricade to block this ramp that kind of goes over the middle of the map here. We want to do this to form a section where we could safely stand in case we're being chased by any sword elites, but also so we deter or prevent any grunts from standing in this archway, this little ramp above the map, because they like to throw nades and just generally shoot at you from that ramp in particular. So by blocking that off entirely, we will disallow any grunts from being able to do that, and we'll need a second pedestal to form a complete barrier. So I'm going to jump down to the bottom of the map where there's a bunch of these things, smack it all the way up these ramps, and then we'll set it beside his little pedestal friend here. And you can see you can make micro adjustments to these pedestals by simply just walking into them instead of smacking them, which kind of sends them flying. You could just walk straight into them and that moves them a little bit instead of, you know, sending them flying across the map. So definitely use that to your advantage to fine-tune the position of all these different things. Another thing you want to be aware of is the fact that by smacking these things all across the map, you could accidentally splatter yourself with them if they like bounce off a wall and then back at you or something like that. So be aware of that, be careful, slowly and surely place these items nicely so they don't fight back. But we're going to take this crate now and we're going to block off this ramp here on the left side of the waterfall. So enemies will be blocked off from that section as well. And then the next thing we're going to do is the same exact thing, but on the opposite side of the map. So I'm not going to show you that. I'm going to skip ahead because it's the same exact thing, just the opposite side. But what we're doing here basically is forming a spawn trap so grunt reinforcements get trapped up here on the top level and can't bother us down below when we're fighting Regret. So I'm going to skip ahead now. We finished off that one side. I skipped ahead, so I'm not showing you that other side, but I'll review the locations in a little bit. We're going to focus on the elite reinforcements now, and they spawn in down below from 4 doors in the 4 corners of the map here. So we want to bring these pedestals and bring them to these brown doors here, and we actually want to move them up towards the door so they're flush with the door. They're flatly pressed up against the door. There's no space in between the door and the pedestal, and we do that with our fine-tuning by just kind of walking into each side of the pedestal to make sure it's flush pressed right up against the door. And we don't want to smack it once we get it close, because by smacking it, we'll kind of hit it. It'll bounce off the door and then back towards us and leave a gap. And we don't want that. We just want to walk nicely into the pedestal to press it up against the door so it's nice and flush. And another thing we want to do is make sure it's not touching the door frame. So for the second one, I'll show you that. So we just want to smack this thing over to the doorway over here, like we've been doing. Sometimes it gets stuck, which is annoying, but don't go too crazy with smacking it. Remember, it could always splatter you if it bounces the wrong way. So be cautious while you're doing this and move it up towards the door. And another thing you want to note is the fact that when you smack things with your BR, it smacks it less than when you smack things with the rocket launcher. So the rockets actually carry more melee damage and power behind them. So if you want to smack something more significantly, use the rockets. If you want a smaller smack, use the BR. But we're pressing this up against the door, and you can see on the left and right side of the pedestal, there's space in between the pedestal and the lighter door frame. You can see there's more of a gray door frame color that doesn't match the brown door itself. You want to make sure that there's space in between the pedestal and the door frame. So there is here, and that's what we need to happen for every single one of these 4 pedestals down below. I'm going to skip ahead on these 2. This is just the opposite side, the opposite end of the temple here down below. So I'm going to skip ahead. We're doing the exact same thing, pressing the pedestals up against the door. Here's the last one, the 4th and final one. We are going to finish it off by finishing it off how we do all the other ones, by just simply walking into it a little bit, all up and down it. Make sure it's nice and flat up against the door there, and then we're done. And now it's time to review all the barricade locations. Behind me is the door we're supposed to enter this area from. I'm going to turn around, and to the right there's a crate blocking the ramp along with the pedestal blocking that walkway up on top. Same thing on the left side here. As we make our way up to the top, we're going to find that there's a big barricade blocking this middle ramp area along with the other side as well. And then we're going to go down this ramp. We'll find a crate blocking this ramp, and then also the other side is going to have the same barricade, the same crate blocking that same similar ramp. So we got that going on there. We're going to jump down and check these elite barricades down below one last time. Make sure they're not touching the door frame and they're flush pressed right up against the door. These two look good. We'll check the other end. There's two more, one on the left. That one looks good too. Just taking a closer inspection. Can't be too careful with these. These are important. The elites, you want those guys to stay in these doorways. And that one looks good too. So now we're good. We're ready to bring in Regret along with his minions to spawn them in. Again, we need to go through this doorway into this little antechamber area, but not very far. Just through the doorway and then back in. And we have all the enemies that we didn't kill in this area. So you can see it's only one elite, fortunately. We're going to wait for him to overheat his gun so he stops firing, so we could go in without him shooting at us. And then we're going to go to the top of the map here. As we spawn all these enemies in, there's 4 grunts, 2 sword elites, and they spawn in random locations. The grunts tend to spawn near the doorway, but the elites could spawn where I am right now, actually. So you might have to adjust where you run to, but you have all these segmented sections up here where you could kind of jump over these barricades and safely be away from these sword elites. And what we want to do now is take out these 4 grunts and exchange our rockets for a plasma pistol, and then we could easily take out the 2 sword elites. With our trusty noob combo, you could actually take down the shield of these honor guard elites with only 1 overcharged plasma pistol burst rather than 2, like a lot of other elites require on the LASO difficulty, but not these guys, fortunately. And you want to be aware of the fact that there will always be 2 grunts on this map. So once you get down to 2, there's 4 to start, but once you get down to 2 and you kill another one, that means another one's going to pop up somewhere. There's always going to be 2 grunts, so you want to watch out because they could spawn in the area you're in, which actually just happened to me, you could see. But I was able to smack them and get my shield back. So that's another thing you could do with grunts is get shield from them. You could also just headshot them with your BR if you don't want anything to do with them. And you could also gather more plasma grenades if you need them, if you run out, because you do need nades to kill Regret. But you can see we took out the 2 sword elites, and now elite reinforcements will be spawning in down below, but they're all trapped in the corner, so we don't have to worry about them anymore, except for the fact that if there's a plasma rifle wielding elite stuck in a corner, he could still shoot you if you get close enough to him. So stay away from the corners if you can. And we took out all the grunts that we need to. We're just going to keep killing the grunts until they both spawn up at the top. So continuously kill grunts at this point once the elites are dead, until the 2 grunts that spawn at the top. They'll be stuck up here, and then you could jump down and be safe with only Regret. Safe, quote-unquote, with Regret's giant gun down below, but at least it's 1-on-1 instead of 3-on-1. So I'm kind of just sticking to the sides at this point. I haven't even engaged Regret yet. You want to be aware of him at all times, though, because obviously he could shoot at you. But we can see now there's 2 grunts up at the top level on the right. So now I know there's no more grunts that are going to spawn down below here. So I could safely go at Regret. And you want to make sure, you could see there I threw a grenade and it went right past him. You want to make sure that when you board him, right when you board him, you want to hit throw grenade button as well. So throw a nade and board him at the exact same time. And by doing that, that actually kind of slips the grenade through his shield and actually gets inside his little bubble shield type thing and actually damages him. And you actually need to do that in order to kill him. I don't think it's possible to kill him just by smacking him. I've done it dozens of times and he still survives. So basically you only need to slip 5 grenades into his shield while you're smacking him, and then he will go down. It could be plasmas or frags, it doesn't matter which. If you run out of all nades, you could go up top to those grunts we trapped up top, kill them, grab their nades, and then re-trap the spawning grunts if you want to or need to, and then just continue on slipping those nades into his shield. And speaking of nades, this probably affects you more earlier on when grenades are being thrown more by the grunts. They don't really throw any because they can't really get a good view on you while you're down here. But grunts could throw grenades in the beginning of this encounter and dislodge some of the barricades that you set up. So try not to linger near the barricades because then they'll throw a grenade at you and then thereby it'll land near the barricade at least and it might dislodge it. So stay away from those barricades as much as you can so it doesn't dislodge them. Another way is elites won't walk through those pedestal barricades on purpose, but I've seen them accidentally do so once or twice. Not the elites we trapped below, but the 2 initial sword elites that spawn in the middle of this area. They won't cross those intentionally, but I've seen them accidentally dislodge them when they're like kind of diving out of the way from a nade or something. So just be aware those barricades are not 100% foolproof, but at the very least it slows all your enemies down. And one final tip for Regret is do not run straight at him because he will annihilate you with his giant gun. Kind kind of circle around them and come at them from the side rather than straight on. Super easy, didn't have to deal with any elites, didn't have to deal with any grunts even. Multi-hour regret boss battles are a thing of the past. But that's it for this one. I'll see you for the next mission when we tackle Sacred Icon, a much easier mission, which will act as a nice cooldown from this one. Thanks for watching, guys. If you found that video helpful, be sure to click on the scorpion icon to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. You could also check out some related guides by clicking on the videos on screen, and you could find links in the description for other social media links of mine. Stay tuned for more Halo guides, and I'll see you in the next one.